where Downey Jr. pointed out to both Marvel and Disney that this could not only ruin his reputation, but also cost him fans, and he's against making those statements. However, both Bob and Kevin informed him that taking part in these types of statements and the press tour for Ironheart is built into his very expensive contract for the future of the MCU, mostly related to the return in Avengers Doomsday. RDJ is already challenging both Bob Iger and Kevin Feige that he will only make statements defending Ironheart and Riri Williams if it avoids arguments about DEI.
Ironheart might be one of the worst executed ideas ever in the MCU, because under all that garbage was actually potential.
In the wake of Ironheart's disastrous performance, Marvel Studios and Disney have found themselves in a full-blown crisis. Viewership numbers are plummeting, fan backlash is spreading across social media, and the studio's carefully crafted reputation is now at risk. With Marvel's future hanging in the balance, the big guns have been brought in. Robert Downey Jr., the face of the MCU for over a decade, has been called to save the day. But not just as an actor. This time, RDJ is being pulled in as a crisis control figure. His iconic role as Iron Man has cemented him as the emotional anchor of the MCU. And now, Marvel is hoping he can breathe life back into Ironheart, the show that's on the verge of total collapse. However, things aren't as simple as they seem. Behind the glossy PR campaigns and media interviews, something much deeper is unfolding. RDJ, who once carried the MCU on his shoulders, is now locked in a battle of principles, feeling manipulated by the very studio that made him a global icon. What started as a strategic move to save a sinking ship is quickly spiraling into a personal and professional crisis for the star. And the real question is, can Robert Downey Jr. repair the damage, or has the trust between him and Marvel Studios been permanently broken?
Ironheart deserves your attention. That's how I knew. I was like, oh, they are desperate to get people to watch this show. After I did my reaction, I kept getting, hey, it wasn't that bad. I just watched it. Hey, I just watched the first 3 episodes. It wasn't that bad.
Ironheart was supposed to be Marvel's bold new step into a fresh era, a series that would carry the torch forward from Tony Stark's legacy and introduce fans to Riri Williams, the latest genius inventor in the MCU. But what began as a promising venture quickly turned into a nightmare. Viewership numbers plummeted within the first few episodes, and fans who once rallied behind the MCU now voiced their disappointment loudly across social media. Critics pounced on the show's uneven pacing, its lack of emotional depth, and its inability to connect with the audience on the same level as the original Iron Man series. But what really set the stage for Marvel's crisis was the fan backlash. The response was more than just negative reviews, it was a massive wave of disillusionment. Fans were vocal, not just about the storytelling, but about the studio's approach to replacing Tony Stark with a new character who wasn't given the organic development or arc that Iron Man had enjoyed over a decade. As the backlash gained momentum, Marvel had to act fast. That's when they turned to Robert Downey Jr., the man who had embodied the heart of the MCU for so many years. But, as we'll see, his involvement wouldn't be as straightforward as many had hoped. But the real trouble began when RDJ's involvement wasn't just about saving the show. It was about defending a project that wasn't ready to be saved.
They also had Robert Downey Jr., and they had him roll out and really kind of prop the show up and prop the character of Riri Williams up above Tony Stark, and really tried to really have him really as the face of the Ironheart press tour, and it really just backfired completely.
When Robert Downey Jr. signed on to the MCU over a decade ago, he didn't just become the face of Iron Man. He cemented himself as an integral part of the Marvel brand. His contract was more than just for acting roles. It had carefully crafted stipulations, including obligations to appear in promotional efforts for key projects. Most notably, RDJ's role in Avengers Doomsday, the next big Marvel event, included clauses that required his involvement in PR campaigns to boost certain Marvel properties. When Ironheart's performance began to slip, Marvel saw an opportunity. They weren't just hoping RDJ's star power could help. His contract effectively forced him into the situation. RDJ wasn't just being asked to promote a show, he was now tied to its success. The company, led by Bob Iger and Kevin Feige, pressured him to appear in media interviews, talk shows, and press tours to back Ironheart, hoping that his presence would reignite the interest of fans. What Marvel didn't fully realize, however, was that this wasn't the simple promotional appearance they envisioned. RDJ's involvement was part of a larger, more complicated strategy to salvage a sinking show, and he wasn't happy about it. But this wasn't just about helping the show. It became about RDJ's growing discomfort with being used as a corporate tool, and things were about to take a turn.
Bob and Kevin refused, and they are forcing him to make statements to go against Marvel fans that are opposed to the Riri Williams character. Now, RDJ is also very annoyed with Marvel and Disney after they initially forced him to do PR and become a part of the press tour, since it was built into his contract for Doomsday.
As Robert Downey Jr. began appearing on talk shows and participating in media interviews, the tension became impossible to ignore. His praise for Riri Williams, the new character in Ironheart, felt rehearsed, almost as if he were reading from a script rather than speaking from the heart. Fans quickly noticed the disconnect. The man who had once embodied the wit and authenticity of Tony Stark now seemed like a corporate pawn, reading lines that didn't resonate with the audience. What was supposed to be a strategic PR move to save the show backfired. Instead of bolstering interest in Ironheart, RDJ's forced praise only deepened the sense that Marvel was trying too hard to push a character who wasn't ready for the spotlight. The fans, who had stood behind RDJ for years, accused Marvel of using him as a marketing tool to sell a product that wasn't connecting. As Backlash spread, RDJ's discomfort grew. Behind the scenes, he started to feel the weight of the pressure from Marvel and Disney. The more he tried to express genuine support for the show, the more forced it felt, and the more he resented being dragged into a mess that wasn't his own. RDJ's frustration reached a breaking point when Marvel executives pressured him to make more than just scripted statements. Now, they wanted him to take a stance on the growing fan backlash.
I recall when they forced Robert Downey Jr., they made a deal with him to take part in the press tour to prop up Riri Williams, played by Dominique Thorne, on multiple talk show programs out there, a lot of which were, of course, affiliated with Disney. We'll talk more about that down the road. However, this is where it gets really intense, because we know that Robert Downey Jr. is a very busy man right now. He is heavily involved with Avengers Doomsday.
As the pressure mounted, Robert Downey Jr. found himself at odds with Marvel's top brass. The tension reached its peak during an emergency video call with Bob Iger and Kevin Feige. RDJ was asked not only to continue promoting Ironheart, but to directly address the growing fan criticism. Criticisms that ranged from complaints about story quality to accusations of sexism and cultural insensitivity. But RDJ, always known for his authenticity, wasn't having it. He flat out refused to issue a public statement condemning the fans' concerns, especially when many of the issues raised were about the series' creative shortcomings, not identity politics. His refusal wasn't just about protecting his own reputation, it was about standing up for his fan base, the very audience that had supported him throughout his MCU journey. RDJ knew that siding with Marvel on this would put him in an uncomfortable position. He feared that publicly defending a show he didn't believe in would alienate his loyal fans and irreparably damage his personal brand. Yet, Marvel was adamant. The executives insisted that RDJ's involvement was crucial for Ironheart's success, and they pushed for a stronger response to fan criticisms. This clash of principles marked the beginning of a deeper rift between RDJ and the studio. But as the conflict deepened, RDJ realized that he wasn't just fighting for creative integrity, he was fighting for his future in the MCU.
A major development that is now active involves drama surrounding Robert Downey Jr. in the midst of the Ironheart ratings nightmare. Now, already Robert Downey Jr. is enraged with both Disney and Marvel, as well as Marvel fans. Already Bob Iger and Kevin Feige held a recent emergency call/meeting that included Robert Downey Jr. remotely, where they were pressuring him.
Despite Robert Downey Jr.'s best efforts, the PR campaign for Ironheart continued to unravel. Marvel had hoped that RDJ's star power would turn the tide, but instead, his involvement became a glaring example of how misguided the whole project had become. His appearances on talk shows and in interviews were meant to serve as a bridge between the old MCU and the new, but fans quickly saw through the facade. RDJ's praise for Dominique Thorne's portrayal of Riri Williams, while intended to elevate the character, felt forced and inauthentic. It was as if RDJ were trying to convince the audience that the unproven character was the next Tony Stark, something that no amount of marketing could make believable. Fans were quick to voice their displeasure, with many feeling that Marvel was disrespecting the legacy of Iron Man by trying to force a comparison that didn't make sense. The ratings kept plummeting, and the backlash grew. The marketing campaign, which Marvel hoped would provide a much-needed boost, had instead exposed the show's flaws more than ever before. Rather than saving Ironheart, RDJ's involvement highlighted just how out of touch Marvel had become with its audience. It wasn't the new hero they were rejecting. It was the misguided attempt to make her a replacement for Tony Stark that fans couldn't accept. But as RDJ's frustration grew, he realized that his involvement in this mess wasn't just about saving Ironheart. It was about protecting his own legacy.
Going out there from the media that you are just a racist if you don't like Ironheart. The reason it's getting this backlash, the reason it's getting bad reviews, the reason that fans don't like what they see, it's just because all the damn racists out there, Jay.
Does it defy the haters? Or is it another skippable series? It's always about you, right? It's always about the audience. It's amazing. It doesn't matter if it's the 2024 election or whether it's a Disney streaming product. It's always about like how evil is the actual voters? How evil are the audience?
As the ratings for Ironheart continued to dive and the fan criticism intensified, Robert Downey Jr.'s sense of betrayal grew stronger. What had started as a simple promotional campaign had turned into a personal and professional nightmare. RDJ had been promised that his involvement in the Ironheart PR push would elevate the series, positioning him as a mentor figure for the new hero, Riri Williams. Marvel assured him that his star power would guarantee the show's success, and that his presence would smooth over the rough edges of the new narrative. But the reality was far from what he had been led to believe. RDJ found himself stuck in a cycle of defending a show that wasn't connecting with the audience, all while his own reputation was on the line. The promises made to him were now exposed as empty, and he began to feel that Marvel had manipulated him into cleaning up their mess. He wasn't just fighting for Ironheart's survival, he was fighting to protect his legacy, which was now being used as a tool to defend a project he had no creative control over. His frustration wasn't just with the show's failure, it was with the false hopes that had been sold to him, leaving him stuck in the middle of a PR disaster that he never signed up for. With his frustration mounting, RDJ now faced a critical decision: continue playing the part and risk his reputation, or stand his ground and risk the future of his MCU career.
Feige and even Dominique Thorne heading into complete damage control to really take control of the situation, and so far that has worked to no avail. Well, this is exactly what's been going on now, to the point where Bob Iger and Kevin Feige are getting involved in a lot of drama with RDJ, Robert Downey Jr.
What had once been a mutually beneficial relationship between Robert Downey Jr. and Marvel Studios was now on the brink of collapse. The tension between RDJ and Marvel was no longer just about Ironheart. It was about the future of their collaboration. The studio had promised RDJ that his involvement would help turn the show around, positioning him as the bridge between the old MCU and the new. But when the ratings continued to fall and the fan backlash deepened, RDJ began to see through the smoke and mirrors. He had been misled into believing that his presence alone could save a failing project. The reality was much harsher. He was being used as a scapegoat to cover up Marvel's missteps. His frustration reached a boiling point when he realized that Marvel's reliance on him for damage control was not just a one-time thing. This wasn't the first time his star power had been leveraged for a struggling project, but it might very well be the last. As the corporate pressure continued to mount, RDJ knew he couldn't keep playing the role of the company's mascot if it meant compromising his own values. The once strong bond of trust between him and Marvel was now shattered. It was a turning point in RDJ's MCU journey, and the future was uncertain. He was no longer the golden boy of the franchise. He was a man trapped by a contract he could no longer accept. With the rift between RDJ and Marvel growing, the stakes were higher than ever. Could this fractured relationship be repaired, or was it the end of an era? As we reach the end of this story, it's clear that Robert Downey Jr.'s relationship with Marvel Studios has changed irreparably. What was once a partnership built on mutual respect and creative freedom has now transformed into a fractured, contractual arrangement. RDJ, who carried the MCU on his shoulders for over a decade, now finds himself questioning whether his future in the Marvel universe is worth the personal and professional cost. The fallout from Ironheart's failure has not only strained his relationship with Marvel, but has also put his own legacy at risk. With Avengers Doomsday looming on the horizon, the big question remains: will Marvel be able to recover from this crisis, or are we witnessing the slow unraveling of the MCU's once unbreakable hold on pop culture? One thing is for certain: the era of blind loyalty to Marvel Studios is over. As RDJ moves forward, it's unclear whether he'll return to the MCU on his own terms, or whether this chapter will mark the end of an era. But one thing we know for sure: the stakes have never been higher for both Marvel and its stars. What do you think? Can Marvel recover from this fallout, or has the damage been done? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Zero Filter for more uncensored drama, insider stories, and everything Marvel. Stay tuned, because the fallout from this crisis is far from over.